Hi, I'm Roslyn, and I chose to do my week 12 homework response on the Alhambra. I'm still learning the pronunciation, but I have learned that Alhambra is it's considered a citadel, which I had to look up the word citadel, and it means that it's somewhere that is set on a hill overlooking an area. And it actually got its name from an Arabic word that I cannot pronounce. It's spelled Alqal-A-Hamra, and it means a red fort or castle. And it's actually the only surviving Palatine city from the Islamic Golden Age. And this was actually during a dynasty. It's called the Nasrid dynasty, and it was basically like the last Islamic kingdom in the Western Europe. So basically, it is a large complex. It takes up about 26 acres and has more than a mile in walls. It also has about 30 watchtowers on it, and so one of the reasons that it was described as a citadel or a thing overlooking things was because it was a huge defensive area. And it actually had three main sections. It had the Al-Kazaba, and this is a military base that housed guards and their families. It had the palatial zone, which contained several places for the Sultan and his king, and then it also had the Medina, and this is a quarter where court officials lived and where they just kind of worked and did all of their things. So several people and several cultures went into building this massive fortress. So the oldest part is the Al-Kazaba, and it's the fortress, with many towers. It's kind of like the defensive part where the soldiers were. And then through the Nasrid dynasty, this area was fortified and made sure that it was built and safe. And then the first historical records of the Al-Kazaba date back to the 19th century. So it's very old and very, very important, and it was the first part that was built and fortified. Okay, so when talking about the Alhambra development and how it just grew, it definitely wasn't the construction of a single person. So throughout the Nasrid dynasty, which was a dynasty of art and culture, and obviously Alhambra, and it first had Muhammad the First, and he laid the foundation for this giant structure, and he fortified the royal site. He reinforced a part called Sabika al-Kazaba by making 3 new towers, and then these towers were called the Broken Tower, the Keep, and the Watchtower. He also made canals taking water from the Darro River, and this allowed him to establish royal residence within the Al-Kazaba. He also built a warehouse or halls for soldiers and younger guards, and he also had many grandsons. So these grandsons were Muhammad II and Muhammad III, and they continued to work on building this giant fortress. There was also other structures that were made by Yusuf I and Muhammad the V, which is the 5th. And a lot of these structures, it wasn't just one, they were continually made better and just made more giant throughout the Nasrid dynasty. Again, some of the accomplishments by Yusuf and Muhammad V were the patio of lions and the justice gate, the baths, and the Kamara's room and the hall of the boat. So there's kind of towards the end of the Islamic rule, there was a lot of things going on, and in 1492, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Castile conquered Granada, unifying Spain under a Catholic monarchy and ending centuries of Islamic rule. So they exiled a lot of it was Muhammad VII, also known as Boabdil, to the Spanish historians. So at the beginning of the 18th century, so the 1700s, a couple hundred years later, after 1492, it actually started to become abandoned. And later, a lot of the towers were actually blown up by the French during the Peninsular War. Again, after the Peninsular War, new construction or repairments began happening in the 1828 by Jose Contreras, and these developments just were continued by his son and his grandson. So it continued to get better, and just other cultures continued to go into this giant construction. As far as cultural influence goes and like religious influence goes into Alhambra, there was three main religions that went into it. So there was Islamic, there was Jewish, and there was Muslim. There was Jewish, there was Christian, and there was Islamic. And the Christians, like, they had a lot of like artwork going into it, so a lot of like chivalrous chivalry paintings, and then a lot of the Islamic culture that went into it were a lot of mosaics, and it is actually believed that some of the earliest parts of this structure were actually built by Jews, and a lot of their influence went into those early parts of the building. What's actually really cool that I found out while I was researching this is that the Jewish people who originally started building it, or believed to originally started building it, they wanted to demonstrate the close ties between Jewish and Muslim courtly culture. So I thought that was super cool. Another thing that I found while researching this that was super cool was that the architecture that went into this was shown that it could be adapted to how you want it to represent something. So it influenced architecture across lands, because the architecture that they're making, like, they weren't really adapting it, and the Alhambra showed that you can adapt it, and you can make it you can make it fit your culture, and you can make certain things that weren't thought to fit a certain culture or a certain lifestyle. You can adapt it, and you can totally make it fit however you want. So that was one thing that the construction of this really contributed to other architectures and other buildings across regions. To watch the human exchange in this giant masterpiece is actually really cool, because you can look and you can see how the Jewish and the Muslims wanted to coincide, and how they wanted to show that they could go together, and it was really cool to see this and how that they're trying to mesh together. And I think it's interesting, because I feel like today we're not trying to do that. Like, people are arguing over religion and politics, and we're not trying to just mesh and be happy together, which I think we can learn a lot from Alhambra, and we can really just mesh together, and we can really live as one happy planet. But anyway, I think that was super cool about the giant structure, is that it took so many belief systems, and it took so many generations of people, and just so much work to make something so spectacular. And it's still standing today, and you can definitely see in like the tiles and the influence that, you know, the Muslims had, and the paintings and the murals that Christianity imposed on it, and just how cool it is to see all of these flavors of people work together is just really interesting. I think another way that the architecture in Alhambra really just was innovative and helped other regions is specifically the channeling of water. I mean, you look at deserts and they don't have a lot of population. Then you look at, even today, you can see that coastal cities are dense in population, and water is everything for humans. And granted, coastal cities are usually near salt water, but just channeling water to a certain place has helped people so much. And where you didn't have a faucet that you could turn on in the olden days, or, centuries ago, it was super important to have these channeling water systems. And just, it was really cool how they were able to adapt this to fit into this giant structure. And people can totally take that concept and wrap it and, do something else with it in another region of the world.